First of all, I'm Ed Blommel, and I am a candidate for Pasco County Tax Collector. And I want to thank the West Pasco Chamber for hosting this event. And I will tell you that it's a great opportunity for the Chamber to get the citizens involved and to learn more about the candidates. And I, as a candidate, really do appreciate it. I'm a first-time candidate for any elected position. I born and raised in Pasco County, married my wife from Pasco County. We've been married 38 years. We have 2 children that both live in Pasco County. One is a teacher, and the other one works at a motorcycle shop in Pasco County. I have a career of working 40 years with Tampa Electric Company, and throughout that 40-year career, I had 9 leadership management positions in various functions. To give you an idea of some of those leadership positions they were in, and I thank you.
All right, we'll get back to that. Mr. Olson.
Folks, it's good to be with you here tonight. You know, when all is said and done, I'll say it now and I'll say it again at the end of this program. There's only one real issue in this campaign, and this election for tax collector, and that is Mike Olson. Is Mike Olson doing a good job as your tax collector? And the answer is yes. During my tenure, I returned over $70 million to the county commission and other taxing authorities through the effective and efficient management of the office. We're noted for providing professional and courteous service to the public. I've implemented extended office hours 2 days a week. This office is even open on Saturdays, one of the only, if not the only county in the state that's open every Saturday except for holiday weekends. With the addition of driver's license services and voter registration 9 years ago, we offer one-stop shopping, which people seem to appreciate and people really like, particularly folks moving in from out of state because they can do everything at one location. Is that the beeper that says shut up?
It is.
That was
Okay.
Mr. Lowe.
Sure. Mr. Blommel, we'll start with you for the first question.
Yes.
Well, one of the differences between your candidacy and that of Mr. Blommel is kind of your vision for the office for the next couple of years. Could you kind of elaborate on that vision a little bit?
Okay, you said one of the differences in our campaign is the visioning of the office.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Yes, it is. I come from a background of customer service, and I bring in the perspective of private sector business. So I do look at the office a little bit differently. My rules of engagement for the employees is to get them involved in the day-to-day activity. I think that the absolute best suggestions come from the frontline employees. There are certain programs that we can institute that will enhance that involvement of those employees in there. I have no doubt and no problem with the way the office has been run in the past. What we're talking about is the leadership and going forward and where we're going to go with the services that we provide for Pasco County as we continue to grow. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, you've got a minute to respond.
I think the best response that I can give to Ed's position, and I think this is about the 3rd time we've appeared together, is that he doesn't understand the job. It's not what he thinks it is. And we'll go on tonight, and I think this will become more and more evident. What I was going to finish a minute ago is we serve over 500,000 lobby customers every year. We collect over $500 million, and it takes a good leader to do this. It takes a good financial background, and I have it. I was a banker in another lifetime. We process over 1 million transactions a year. I brought banking technology into the office, been one of the leaders in that, going back a number of years. Pasco County, Lee County, and Hillsborough County pioneered the use of high-speed remittance processors to process tax notices. So how do we do all these things and do it very, very well? I don't think anybody in the state does it any better. We do it with technology and with good management skills.
All right, Mr. Blommel, you've got 30 minutes. Or
Okay, thank you.
30 seconds.
How much time?
Only just 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay, thank you. I too have the management skills. I worked for a major corporation for 4 years in various locations. We had over 600,000 customers, and so that meant that we were doing over 600,000 transactions per month. We were well over $1 billion company as far as revenues. I do not see the challenges. I think it's more of leadership of employees. Florida statute dictates what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and even when you're going to do it in all the positions, both in the tax collection as well as the division of motor vehicles. So I think I am up for the challenge. Thank you.
And Mr. Olson, if you'd like to take last 30 seconds.
I'm a hands-on manager. I try not to micromanage. You know, and I've been through over 600 hours of management training and tax collector duties, and one of the things I had to overcome a number of years ago was getting in too tight. When you have a mature group of workers and you define a task and you give it to them, you let them do it, and you check in from time to time. That's good.
All right. The next question I wanted to ask you, Mr. Olson, it seems another one of the differences is on going forward, the future needs of the office, and specifically on office space. You talked about wanting to build a couple of new, all-in-one offices, if you will, and Mr. Blommel talked about wanting to rent offices. Could you talk about why you think your position is better on that?
Could you repeat part of that, the last sentence?
Sure. Well, I guess could you talk a little bit about why you think your position is better regarding the office space this year?
I'm still on with you. Why my office?
Well, I guess you talked about wanting to construct new offices the tax collector would have as kind of a one-stop shop, and Mr. Blommel has talked about having rented office space.
Okay. I developed the first shopping center storefront for the tax collector's office many, many years ago, and we needed another office here on the coast, and I developed that. It is now evolved into our Gulf Harbor's office, which is a model of efficiency, a model for the entire state of Florida, the way we process counter transactions, driver's license transactions. I'm the first constitutional officer to open a full-service office in a shopping center in Land O'Lakes. I later moved it into a county facility when they bought what's now called the Half-Part Building. I'm the first constitutional officer to establish a storefront office in the city of Zephyr Hills. I had to close it last year because of rain damage in the storm, and I was able to escape that lease because once we took over driver's licenses countywide from the state of Florida 9 years ago, the model changed. We've learned that shopping center storefronts with crowded parking lots are not the right venue for driver's license transactions. In the Land O'Lakes office, which I'm trying to get out of now, we've had over 30 accidents in the parking lot. We've had 2 or 3 significant ones out on Highway 41 around Bell Lake Road. So I am convinced the way to go for safety, for liability, or to avoid liability, and for the costs involved is to open regional centers. We need one that will cover Zephyr Hills and Wesley Chapel area, but we need one to replace the building we have in Land O'Lakes. It's more cost effective. I've done both. You know, we've owned by the virtue of the Gulf Harbor's office that I developed in the county finance, and I've rented several shopping center storefronts. As I said, the model has changed for all these reasons, and we need to move on with a series of regional offices where we can have a driver course on site protected by chain link fence and take our nervous driver applicants and have them do that. I didn't invent this idea. The state did. They did it very successfully in Orlando, so I'm kind of piggybacking on their idea.
Sure, Mr. Blommel, you can add.
Okay, whether we buy land that's currently on tax roll and build, or if we lease. Well, my option would be to lease. Through my career with Tampa Electric in the private sector and numerous of the agencies that I served on, not-for-profit agencies, we faced the same thing. I have put together several business plans throughout my career, both for the private sector business and for not-for-profits, and it does not pay off. Even if you were to get the capital investment depreciation option, it still does not pay off. What we are looking at is building 2 18,000 square foot buildings if we're going to model Gulf Harbors. You're talking about a lot of money, several $1 million plus throw in the cost of the land. I think that with the economy, with all of our other county agencies having to cut their budget to to put the residents in debt for long term is not a good option. Thank you.
And Mr. Olson, you've got 30 seconds.
Yeah, I do have a response. And one thing, you know, and I'm not taking shots or anything, but Ed keeps talking about private enterprise. I'm the one that came from private enterprise. I ran a bank, for Pete's sake. I went from stockroom clerk in 9 years to vice president in charge of the bank. It was the Exchange National Bank and Holiday. I'm the one that brought the private sector approach to the tax collector's office and brought it into the 20th century. Tampa Electric right now shows $14 million on the Hillsborough County tax roll. Ed hasn't, he may have adopted a lot of plans for public organizations, but he's not developed one for a government. He doesn't understand why county government should own their own facilities, and I do.
Thanks. One final 30 seconds for you, Ed.
30 seconds. Well, I know that government's changing. I just don't think it's changing fast enough to keep up with what we need to do in the future. This new generation is looking at more technology than they are bricks and mortar. The days of throwing money in the form of bricks and mortar at what may be perceived as a challenge in the future with the growth of Pasco County, I believe is behind us. We need to find a new way to find that solution using technology and other things. Once you build a building, there's no getting out of it. I've never seen a government that I know of that has sold the building. So it is a long-term debt that I don't believe we can stand now. Thank you.
Mr. Blommel, question to you. Mr. Olson says you don't know what the job is. Tell me why you do.
Well, I do know a little bit about the job. No, I've not done it for 32 years, but I do know a little bit about the job. I've read the Florida statute that pertains to the, not all of them, there's a lot of them, that pertains to the tax collection, both the ad valorem, non-ad valorem, and tangible. I've looked through the statutes that handle the division of motor vehicles. I understand the functions that they do. I've used the office in the past. I understand people. He's correct that we got some great employees working at the tax collector's office. For gosh sakes, I'm related to a few of them. But I will tell you that you get the right people in the right place. You give them the training, the tools to do it. You set the guidelines, and you hold them accountable. We got some great employees there, and that is exactly what I would do. I would not look at micromanagement.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, elaborate on his misapprehensions.
I agree with what he just said, because that's what we've been doing for 32 years. Now, granted, it took me a few years to get going. It took a lot longer I took over from Ms. Coulter upon her retirement. And by the way, she and her brother, Cecil Lee Smith, together jointly, he died, the governor appointed Ms. Coulter. They had it for 42 years, as a matter of fact. And the person before them, I think, had it for even longer. If you look at most of the constitutional officers in the history of Pasco County, they were all long-term. And you look at every tax collector in the state of Florida that's doing a good job, and that's a lot of them, probably most of them, and they have it. You know, Ed said the other night that he retired after 40 years, and that is commendable. But, you know, now he's looking at me saying, well, you've done a good job, you're doing a good job. The other night he said, hats off and kudos. Well, thank you. But after 32 years, it's time for me to leave so he can have the job. There's a little bit of something disingenuous in there.
Mr. Blommel, 30 seconds.
Okay, disingenuous, let me straighten that out. My 40 years with Tampa Electric Company was in 9 different positions. It was not one. In our business, we move leaders about every 7 to 8 years. It is good. You get a fresh look at it, you get a fresh idea. Employees like the change, and it helps the company grow and move forward. We set goals and directions, and we move forward with that. As far as kudos to them, absolutely. The office has done a good job in the past. Where we're different is where we want to go, how much debt we want to put this county in. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
I brought in some great people from the outside, and unlike, I think I'm the only person in county government, one of the only ones in the state, I use a management psychologist before I promote anybody into supervisory or management from within, or before I bring somebody in from outside. We have a great interview team that interviews potential candidates for the front line. We work very hard to hire our people. We employ all the modern management techniques, and, you know, frankly, we know what we're doing. We do a good job of it, and the proof is in the service that we provide.
Mr. Olson, it has been suggested elsewhere, not here, sir, that your management style may be somewhat abrasive and tough on employees, on employee morale in an already difficult atmosphere. What's wrong with that assessment?
It's not true. As a matter of fact, I think the world of our employees. We provide good working conditions. We provide the most up-to-date systems and equipment. I just told you that we go to great lengths to hire the right supervisors and managers. We specifically look for people that understand other people and treat people like they'd like to be treated themselves. But let me tell you this. I got a job to do. You've heard the numbers. I won't bore you with that. You've heard the number of transactions we do. Having a government job, in my opinion, is just not getting on the gravy train. It's providing that professional, courteous service. I mean, the one thing I will not tolerate is somebody being rude to a customer. And most of the people that had an issue, and it's not that many, in my office, has been because of rudeness to a customer. Everybody has a bad day. We all have gone to work and we didn't feel well. This thing of a rough management style is basically a fabrication. I expect every one of our employees to come in, do an honest day's work, treat the public well, be honest, and earn their money. And I think everybody expects that of government at all levels. And one of the issues in the country today is that government, probably rightly so, has developed a reputation as just being a safe place to go and get the benefits and so on and so forth. I treat this as if it were my own business, and that's the way it should be done. This thing of bad morale, you cannot have the high degree of public service that we have if you have bad morale and a bunch of upset people. You can't do it.
Mr. Blommel, a minute.
Okay, yes, I've heard the bad morale too. I've gotten calls from employees that used to work there and employees that still work there. I will tell you that I do not put a lot of weight into people talking about the morale thing. I'll tell you, my feeling on that is that when I go in as a customer, and I've been back in Pasco County for some 18 years, and I've used the office. A lot of my family members use the office. The concern that I have is that it seems to be very sterile. It seems to be almost like I'm not dealing with a human, I'm dealing more with an ATM. And I will tell you that I feel like that my leadership and management style would bring a different work environment for the employees. It would not be lax, but they would feel like going through some of the programs that I would institute, like Share the Successes, other programs that I have that from the private sector that adopt a program for continuous improvement ideas would change the working morale.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
I have over 100,000 customer comment cards, which we use for a variety of purposes. 99.2% of those cards rate our services excellent and good, and a large portion of those specifically single out employees for doing a great job and being nice. The other 0.2%, they had issues with driver's licenses and things like that, and they were unprepared when they came in. I think I'll go back tomorrow and tell my employees, all 150 odd of them, that Ed said it's a sterile environment, may look like it was a robots and machines. I'm offended at that. Ed, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
It's 160 employees.
Not a full capacity.
No, that's okay. We're done there, right?
I think so.
All right.
That's fine.
Mr. Blommel, could you, I mean, so much of the job is about customer service. Could you elaborate a little bit on some of the changes you want to make in that regard?
Yes, thank you. Some of the programs that first of all, I would sit down. My first priority, if I'm lucky enough and the Lord's blessing me with this position, is I would sit down and interview every employee to let them know about my management style, to start getting some feedback from the employees, frontline, top management, you name it. I would be real interested as to why they're there. I have a feeling some of them may share with me that they're there simply because it's a job. That is the attitude that I would like to change. I would like for them, through some of the programs that I would institute, feel like that they own part of that business, that they have a reason to come to work every day other than a paycheck, that serving the customer means more to them than simply giving them the decount or taking their check. I would give the opportunity for those employees to be engaged in an environment to where they could actually see some of the suggestions and ideas that they would bring forward actually be instituted into the day-to-day routine. I think that you would see a huge change in the attitude and the morale of the office. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Olson, a minute on customer service.
I know a couple of the people that they're talking to Ed. The same thing happened in 1996 when I had an opponent. Every organization has one or two disgruntled or whatever number of employees. And Tampa Electric, I'm sure, is the same. I've heard some of the same things about Ed. But, you know, up till right now, I haven't said anything about it. But the fact is, some of the things he's saying, I'm hearing it. I can see exactly who said it. A person doesn't work for me anymore. And, you know, I would probably die before I would take somebody like that back. I know who it was. I know what they're saying. But this happens in every election. It happened in 1996. It happened in 2000. And it's happened again in 2012. When you ask people to do and tell them what you expect, and they are told what we expect, and then they don't do it, you don't have any recourse other than to bring them in and talk to them about it. And we do it. We have a very professional HR department, and we take care of business that way. We treat people well. And this thing about morale issue is baloney. It's baloney.
And 30 seconds for you.
30 seconds, thank you. The difference in the leadership style is that I would not direct these people on a day-to-day basis as to what I expected them to do. You get them the tools and training, and they're going to come and tell you what they would like to do. And there's a huge difference. Even within Tampa Electric Company, we had morale issues. Yes, we did. But we found out that changing managers and leadership and instituting some of those programs did a world of good. And it goes directly to the bottom line as far as productivity and saving dollars. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Olson, do you think that, what do you think about Mr. Blommel's point that, you know, you have been in office for more than 30 years, you've tried out a lot of your ideas, isn't it time for a fresh perspective?
I've been in office 32 years because I do a good job. I've done a good job, I'm still doing a good job, and I'll do a good job in the future. And again, I could have said hypocritical, but I was trying to be nice when I said that Ed had been there 40 years, but he thinks it's time for me to go at 32. Ed wants a job. Night before last in Dade City, he said that he retired, was looking for something to do, and you know, he thought this job provided a challenge. It would give him something to do. That's not what being a constitutional officer is all about. It's about public service. It's not looking for something to do because you're tired of playing golf.
Minute for you, Mr. Blommel.
Thank you. I'm not a good golfer. I don't play unless there's scrambles. But my 40 years with Tampa Electric Company covered customer service, customer relations, governmental relations, economic development, and education. So it's not like I was in the same position for 40 years. I think that there's help in moving around in the position. Has he been in 32 years? Yes. You could also look at that and say, if you hadn't gotten it done in 32 years and moved the county to the top rung, then maybe it is time for someone else to look at that with some fresh ideas. Thank you.
And 30 seconds for you, Mr. Olson.
I have moved Pasco County to the top rung. My counterparts in the state of Florida understand that. They call me, I call them, we borrow ideas from each other. I've had people from all over the state come in and look at our buildings, our facilities, the way we handle transactions, our equipment, our software. We do a good job. And as far as moving people around, I would wait 9 years to transfer. In fact, 3 weeks ago, I did a row your boat with my managers. You know, we stay fresh, we stay on top of things. And I don't micromanage. That's what I said earlier, was that was something that many years ago I saw as a little weakness on my part, which was corrected.
30 seconds, Mr. Blommel.
30 seconds, thank you. Yes. In checking with some of the folks that work for that are associated with the Tax Association for the state of Florida, I disagree respectfully that we're in the top rung. They give me names like Polk County, if I want to pattern myself after a county. They give me names of Sarasota. They give me names of Manatee County. They said, if you really want to get Pasco County moved to the top, go down and take the better parts of bits and pieces from those counties. Thank you.
Mr. Blommel, following up on that, what have you learned so far from checking out those other counties? What inefficiencies do you perceive in the operation of the tax collector's office as this operates now, and how would you correct it?
Well, a little bit that I have learned just from doing some research online. I will tell you, out of respect, I have not contacted other constitutional officers in another county. I thought that that would be unfair, asking them to share that information with Mr. Olson being the incumbent, and I would not do that. But I will tell you that doing research, I find that even some of the smaller counties, of which I did not mention one, have a webpage that is much more friendly, much more inviting, and offer more services than we do here in Pasco County. I have found that some of the larger counties who have a larger geographical area, a larger population, are doing it with 15% fewer employees. So I believe that when I said that there's challenges and opportunities, just with those two small examples, I believe that I could keep busy for a while. Hey, what are you doing that we're not doing, and why is it working there and not here? And I would look at integrating those ideas. I would spend a lot of time getting involved with the Tax Association for the state of Florida. I would become very, very active, and I would try to be a leader in that organization. I believe there's a lot of good ideas that we can glean from being involved in that organization. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, then.
You know, I have great respect for Joe Tedder and Polk County. We're good friends. I have great respect for Doug Belden in Hillsborough County. You mentioned Sarasota, Barbara Ford Coates, and I go back 30 years probably. I think she may have been there longer than me. The fact is, every day we get customers from Polk County, from Hillsborough County, from Pinellas County, from Hernando County that come to us for service. As far as doing things with fewer employees, you know, maybe. We've analyzed our office compared to others, and if the same guy that's giving you this baloney information would give you the rest of it, he would tell you that Pasco is always high in efficiency, among the highest related to other counties. I've seen the numbers yet, and you haven't. You're just taking somebody's word that's got a personal axe to grind. Now, you know, your campaign has been short on specifics and long on generalities. Why don't you tell me 2 or 3 things? Oh, by the way, we are going to revisit our website. That's a thing next year. Why don't you tell me some of these specific things that a small county is doing that we're not?
Mr. Blommel, 30 seconds.
Okay. For instance, Juanita Sykes in Hernando County has a button on her website that will allow customers to actually schedule appointments. That's just one example. I have looked at several websites.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
I can answer this one in 30 seconds. We do our driver's license well enough that we don't have to schedule appointments, folks. Try to schedule one in Pinellas County. The last I saw, 6 weeks. You will wait. That's why those people come to Pasco. I don't need to schedule DL appointments because we can handle it where you don't have to wait for an appointment.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
And this, I'll just ask the question. One of the criticisms from the right about the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, is that it will deliver medical care with the efficiency of the post office, the patience of the DMV, and the compassion of the IRS. That's your office they're knocking when they talk about the DMV. Does that tick you off? And what's your philosophy about making sure that the people that you have behind the counter are not that stereotype?
I work very hard, and we get this in our comment cards constantly. You guys don't act like a governmental agency. That is the highest compliment that I think anybody can pay our office and our employees. That's what we work for, and that's what we get. So, Tom, it doesn't tick me off at all, because that's not the perception that people have of my office.
Mr. Blommel.
Okay, thank you. The perception of what people have of the employees and how the office is run, because they deal 99% of the time with frontline employees. I believe our our website and our leadership needs to adopt something along this line, and I got this from one. To treat our customers with such professionalism and concerns that we're able to change their perception of what government is. That is a quote that I believe we need to adopt here in Pasco County, to where when people deal with us, they do not feel like they're dealing with a government agency.
Mr. Olson.
Ed, you're a day late and a dollar short, friend, because we already do that, and I can prove it. I have it in writing. I mean, we'd have to go through 100,000 customer comment cards, but, you know, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Mr. Blommel, 30 seconds.
Whenever we do, I've heard a lot about the survey cards. Whenever we do a survey, you always compare your level of survey. Am I supposed to be responding?
No, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking. Whenever we do a survey, and especially when you're talking about customer service, you always compare yourself to people who are regarded the top and the best of the best. I'll give you an example. Publix. Whenever we used to do a survey in the private sector, we wanted people to compare us to Publix. Where do we stand next to Publix? Thank you.
Mr. Lowe.
All right, Mr. Blommel. I wanted to talk a little bit about your campaign contributions. You've received a significant chunk from the local Republican Party. How do you explain to the voters that the race isn't just about party labels?
The last part, I understand my contributions from the Republic. Put that a little closer to you now.
Sure. How do you explain to voters that the race isn't just about party labels?
Not about party labels. Well, I thought we have a difference in opinion of leadership. I am a Republican, he's a Democrat. I would hope that the voters of Pasco County would look at this further than that. I hope that they would look at the character of us. I hope that they would look at the direction that we want to take the county and the way that we bring in ideas on how to treat employees and customers. As far as the contributions from the Republican Party, that was part of your question. As far as I'm concerned, it's a group of people. I never did ask for the first contribution from the Republican Party. They're a group of people that I have spoke before of. They like my ideas. I will also tell you that I have spoke to Gus Villarakas, Representative Will Weatherford, Representative Richie Corcoran, Senator-elect John Lake, Milton Simpson, retired Sheriff Bob White. They like the idea of bringing in that private sector idea of running government more like a business. They like the idea of, oh gosh, everybody's having to cut their budget. Find another way to meet that demand. Do not put more debt on our residents in Pasco County. Even if we are able to construct those buildings and pay with them, with some of that $70 million that's returned, by the way, that's mandated by Florida statute. Those dollars that would be used for construction of those buildings will have to come away from those donations back to the general operating fund of the county. Then, the long-term maintenance, repairs, and ongoing of those buildings become an issue for our county commissioners, of which they have no say if we can build those buildings or not. If the tax collector wants to build those buildings, you do it through the Department of Revenue. Your county commission do not have a say, but they have to put up with the burden of the maintenance for it from this point on. And the residents have to pay for it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Olson, you've got a minute to rebut.
Well, to clear up on the $70 million, Ed doesn't understand that either, or is not willing to admit what it really is. $70 million wouldn't be there if I didn't run my office efficiently. Over the years, I could have budgeted every dollar of that $70 million through the Department of Revenue and spent it for offices, for equipment, for more employees. Could have done any of those things. I ran it like a business. Government, let's set something straight. Government cannot run like a business. It's a good platitude, it's a great thing to say, it sounds good, but it doesn't work that way. Government is a different animal. And that's why Ed, coming from a public utility, I can understand why he doesn't understand. All he knows is what he's being told by other people. And those other people, have ulterior motives, as a matter of fact. I can tell you what I've learned over the years. People care more about their time. It's valuable to them. They don't want to sit in an office and wait an hour, 2, 3 hours. And some of the other counties you mentioned, Yeah, you have people who wait a couple hours. That's why they come to Pasco.
And Mr. Blommel, you've got 30 seconds.
A lot of my research that I'm talking about, I obtained myself. It's not from disgruntled or fired employees or retired employees or existing employees. I will tell you that the budget for the tax collector is set up on commission as well as fees and for doing the services. It is reported to the Department of Revenue, and you do have to justify it. I think the $70 million over the 32 plus years or 32 years is the difference between what you budget and what you take in, and those are based on fees and commissions. It's pretty basic. Thank you.
And a final 30 seconds, Mr. Olson, if you
It is basic, but you're still not getting it. By operating the office efficiently and running it as close to a business as you can run a governmental agency, I turned a net profit. That's what it boils down to. I could have spent every dollar of the $70 million on all. I didn't. I run it efficiently.
All right, Mr. Olson, I wanted to hear both of you guys talk about one of the concerns over the past couple of years has been the new federal laws regarding driver's licenses, the real ID laws. How do you help people when they come in for a driver's license understand those laws and don't get frustrated and getting it?
You know, a few years ago, Congress, because of the World Trade Center terrorist bombings, passed the Federal Real ID Act. They set out a course of requirements for the individual states to follow. Some states have implemented the Real ID Act, some have not. The good state of Florida, our legislature and DMV, with their infinite wisdom, decided that the good people of Florida were going to be among the first to comply with this law. And I don't think that was a good idea. None of us want terrorists. None of us want to issue a driver's license to a terrorist. And everybody remembers that the people that flew the jets into the Trade Center got their driver's licenses somewhere down in South Florida. We tried to educate people. Letters, everything that we can do. It's the state's responsibility to put out the flyers, to do the television. And what's happening is this law has gone further and further. People know more about it. People are telling their neighbors about it. And it's working pretty well now, but it is a burden on people. It's particularly a burden on females. It's almost like a female is treated like a piece of real estate by the government because they have to show, like a title search. From the time they got married, they have to show a marriage certificate. If they're divorced or widowed, they have to show those papers. If they remarry, they have to show that. You know, we've had cases where an 85-year-old female from out in the Midwest moves to Pasco County. Those records don't exist anymore. Well, what we have done, and the Tax Collectors Association, that Ed seems to think I don't know exists, but I've been a active member of it for years. I just choose not to spend money traveling around the state of Florida promoting myself. We have lobbied, and so has DMV, and now there are exceptions that can be made in certain circumstances. We have more flexibility to help people now than we had a year ago.
All right, Mr. Blommel, you got a minute?
You know, I would agree with that. It is a burden on the residents of the state of Florida, and I realize that we need to do whatever we can do to make that experience as pleasant as we can for folks that come in. It is also a burden on the employees. They're trained very well to handle it, and they do have some options now. I kind of wish the state of Florida had not gone that route to make it so difficult, but they have, and with that, we do the best job we can. And I think that that's probably the one area that I've heard the most complaints about, and I too tell them, you need to contact your state legislator. That is something that as far as the local tax collectors, you don't have a lot of options. It's kind of like one of the statutes. You got to follow the rules. And so, with that, thank you.
And Mr. Olson, 30 seconds if you'd like.
You know, Monday night, I think it was C.T. Bowen, the editor of the St. Pete Times, asked about security guards. The reason we have security guards is directly related to the passage of this Real ID Act. I have a manager sitting right up here whose life was threatened by a customer. she's trying to help him. Well, I guess I'll just go home and get my gun and come back and shoot you and a bunch of other people. You know, since Oklahoma City, since the World Trade Center, we don't take that lightly. We have virtually a zero tolerance. The man is being prosecuted. We've had guns come flying out and going across the floor, so we put in security guards as a result of the Federal Real ID Act.
Mr. Blommel.
As far as the safety of employees and the security guards, I'm very much aware of that, and we also had to use that at Tampa Electric. We handled a lot of cash, a lot of checks, and if anyone ever threatened any of our employees, we followed up on it as well. We had a saying there, it still exists today, that safety of life shall outweigh all considerations. Nobody needs to work in that kind of environment. If it takes security guards, I would have security guards. Thank you.
Question to you, Mr. Blommel. What major upgrades or improvements will taxpayers notice 2 years from your election? What, in other words, are the metrics voters can apply to measure whether you're meeting your campaign promises?
Well, I will tell you that my campaign promise, I hate to use that word promise, but it seems to get out there, but what I'm standing for in my campaign is that I plan on improving morale. I know we've been through that before, but if you ask me what I would do, there are programs that I had talked about earlier, continuous improvement, share the successes that I would implement. And I will tell you that I have heard from the people in Zephyrhills Hills that they definitely want an office there. And just sitting around talking to them in small groups and stuff, they don't care if it's a full service office or not. They even bring it to my attention. When's the last time they had a driving test? And I would venture to say if we were to do a survey in this room, it's been a long time since any of us have had a driving test. So they're looking for something in that area. They had it once before, they want it back. I think that you would look that I would go to these other tax collector associations and find out those areas to where they are head and shoulders above us. Why are they? Why are they offering different services? Why are they able to do it with fewer employees? Why are some of them leasing and not building? I would go through that process to bring it back here to Pasco County. I would cherry pick what they are doing in those counties.
Mr. Olson.
Well, first of all, I opened the first constitutional officer's office in Zephyrhills Hills, and were it not for that March storm, we probably would still be there. And I've already said the most efficient way to do this is a regional office to cover the citizens of Land O'Lakes and the citizens of Meadow Point and Wesley Chapel and those areas. As far as contacting, here we go again. Ronald Reagan, there you go again. Now we're talking about this nebulous thing of other tax collectors in the state doing things better than I do. You came up with one, and that was a button on a computer screen for appointments that we don't need to make. Do you have any more? I mean, if somebody's got a good idea that I can use, I've used a lot of them from other people. Again, let's long on generalities and short on specifics.
Mr. Blommel, 30 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, long on generalities and short on specifics. I would visit those other tax collectors' offices. I'll reiterate that, and there would be much more specifics that I will bring back. I can tell you that modern technology, look what you can do with a cell phone now. It is unbelievable. The thought of building 2 buildings that we're going to have long-term debt and have for the rest of our lives and the generations that follow us, with those generations, they don't want to come into bricks and mortar if they can do it. I think there's going to be a huge change in technology that's going to move us forward, and those needs for buildings will not exist. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
We do a lot of things over the cell phone in life that we didn't used to do, and yes, that's going to happen. But you have to have legislation to make these things happen. We implemented this year. You folks got a letter in the mail if you're a property owner. You can pay your taxes. You can get your tax bill over the internet. You can print your receipt over the internet. The legislature passed that last year. We're among the first to implement it. I think your answer is kind of lame, to tell you the truth. There's no way that you're going to issue a driver license examination behind the wheel of a car over a cell phone. It's going to take facilities to do that, folks. It's just pretty simple and basic. There's always going to be a human element required, and you're going to have the place to conduct it. It needs to be in a safe place.
Mr. Olson, you have been sort of dismissive of Mr. Blommel's exclusive reliance on private sector experience that he would bring to the job if he were elected. You say that government is a different animal. How is it different, and why is it different?
Well, first of all, I want to clarify, he's not coming from the private sector. He's coming from a public utility. Well, in a private sector, a business person has to work to cut expenses, to generate revenues. Oh, yeah, people in the public utility business talk about that, but the bottom line is to go to the Public Service Commission and get a rate increase in order to operate. How about our good friends, it's not TECO, but how about our good friends with their management skills at Progress Energy? They broke their nuclear power plant, tried to fix it, broke it again, and now the cost is in the billions of dollars, maybe take another 8 years if they do it. If that's an example of public utility thinking, we sure as heck don't need it in the tax collector's office. So what was the second part of your question, Tom?
You say government is a different animal. Why is it and how is it?
It is much more difficult to manage in the public sector than it is in the private sector. And again, I came from the bottom and 9 years later was in charge of a bank. I know how it is. I've been there, done that. Because of the various laws, and the tax collector's office is very limited as to the basics of the job by virtue of Chapter 197, the state of Florida. It spells out the tax collection process. It spells out the driver's license. Other chapters spell out the driver's license and the auto registration process. So you're not, if you have a bad experience in Publix, they can comp you a chicken or something. Not so. You have a bad experience, we can't cut you a discount or give you a coupon to come back or something. It's difficult, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but one of the biggest differences is your personnel files are wide open. You're managing in a fishbowl, and it is, guarantee you, much more difficult in the public sector to be a manager than it is in the private sector.
Mr. Blommel, a minute?
1 minute. Well, first of all, I want to address the Tampa Electric Company as far as Public Service Commission, and as far as us not being in the private sector. We are on the New York Stock Exchange, which means we have investors to answer to. That's one form of customers. And we also have rules and regulations, which are called statutes, that are set up by the Public Service Commission that we have to follow. There is no room for wiggle much with Tampa Electric Company in the way that we provide service to our customers. As far as what happened in Crystal River, I was not part of that. That's a whole nother world, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be there. I'm out of that industry now, but Tampa Electric does not have a piece of that pie. As far as government being more difficult to operate than the private sector, the way that I see government usually operates from the top down is they make more money. They just crank up the press. And I believe that government is not harder to manage than the private sector. I differ with you. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
I can answer this in less than 30 seconds. It's another example of Ed choosing not to understand.
Mr. Blommel, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. I don't know what there's not to understand. You're talking about offering a service, and you're talking about people, and you're talking about employees that are people as well. I think that there is improvement that I could make to that position, and I'd love to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Logan, you got anything left?
I'm about out of questions, actually.
Actually, we do have... Not so fast. We have one from the audience, and it's addressed to Mr. Olson. And because it came from the audience, we're going to ask you. Mr. Olson, as an elected official, part of your responsibility is to give back to the community. This says, why have you not been involved where your opponent is extremely involved in community volunteering?
Well, I certainly understand the direction that came from. And Ed is to be congratulated on his level of public service. It just depends on what somebody wants to do in life and how they choose to give things back to their fellow man. I'm not I've said this on the stage before, you probably noticed, if you know anything about the shrine, you see my shrine pin. I'm proud of that and I wear it. I'm a master mason, a Freemason. I have been since 1969. I come from a family of Freemasons. I'm a 32nd degree Mason, Tampa Consistory. Been that since 1969. I am an ambassador at large of Egypt Temple Shrine in Tampa. That's an honorary title given me in the 1970s, which means I can represent that shrine temple anywhere in the world. I give back to my fellow man, but I don't brag about it, and I don't use it for political purposes, and it would suit me just fine if you guys don't like that. I'm proud of what Ed has done, but, you know, that doesn't mean somebody is qualified to be tax collector of Pasco County any more than me being a 32nd degree Mason and Shriner and past worshipful master of my own lodge in Newport Richie in 1975. It's been that long. That doesn't qualify me or anybody else to be tax collector of Pasco County. You know, I know how to do this job. I've done it. I've done it successfully. I am doing a good job. And with your help, that's what I plan to continue to do.
Mr. Olson, a minute. I'm sorry, Mr. Blommel, a minute.
Oh, okay. All right.
You have worn us down.
Are you going to write that in the paper?
You have worn us down.
No. Just on my personal service, I'll tell you that the hardest thing for me as a candidate is to sit here and tell you about me and brag about myself. You don't do those things for that purpose. You don't do them for political gain. You don't do them for financial gain. But I will tell you that I have had a lot of enjoyment out of serving back this community. I have been asked to be leaders of many organizations through Pasco and Hernando County that were in a pickle at one time or another. And through my leadership and the help of those boards, we have turned them around. I'm very proud of it. We're working on one right now, which is Pasco County Housing Authority. And it's not just me. There are other commissioners on that thing that take the leadership role. I will tell you the benefit of working with those organizations is it keeps you in touch. And I will have many times people at my church, people at the grocery store, on, help me understand how they feel about the organizations that I represent. They do the same thing when I represent a Tampa Electric Company. They do the same thing if I'm tax collector. So the involvement works. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, 30 seconds.
I think Ed and I agree on that one.
Mr. Blommel.
I'll take it.
All right. So since we're pretty much out of things to ask you fellows about, how about we move to closing statements? Mr. Blommel, you want to give us 90 seconds?
90 seconds, yes. I don't think it'll take 90 seconds. I've had a very extensive career. I've been blessed. I've got a wonderful wife and 2 children. I have been blessed through Tampa Electric Company and different organizations to be involved in Pasco County. I have truly loved my career. I hate to use that cliche of serving the customers, but I feel like that I have been a public servant even when I was working for Tampa Electric Company. If I'm elected as tax collector, I will have some new ideas. Maybe I do not have the specifics tonight so he can take them back and implement them between now and November 6th, but I can promise you some new ideas. I will tell you that we differ on how to handle the challenges for the future. I still stand fast on that I would not incur the debt on Pasco County and its residents to build the buildings. I would look at leasing, and I'm not 100% convinced that we need new facilities. I would first go around to other counties that are on my list with some unique ideas. I would look at technology. I believe that the future of this county needs to be put in place over the next 4 years. With the changes that are coming down, with the debt that people are seeing right now, the one thing that I have heard loud and clear, please don't give us any more debt. I'm drowning. So that is part of my commitment. What I would love to do is have the opportunity to be your tax collector. So I would ask for your support between now and on November 6th. Thank you.
Mr. Olson, 90 seconds.
When one looks at the growth that's already been approved by the county commission in the corridor from, say, Gun Highway and Odessa over to Zephyr Hills area, the last answer I had was something like 80,000, 85,000 housing starts. And of course, that kind of went in the tank for a while when the economy went south. But it will come back. We won't be in this economy forever. And it takes somewhere probably between 1.5 to 2 years startup time, by the time you acquire a piece of property and then put a facility on it. Maybe we ought to have one of these meetings in Zephyr Hills or Wesley Chapel, and then we'll see how the people feel about whether they want facilities there, because I know they do. I know they need those facilities, and I'm looking at putting them in the right place. I had to correct Ed nicely the other night, because I've never talked about long-term debt. The only conversations I've had with my banker at SunTrust is short-term debt. There's no reason that we can't build a facility and pay it off in a relatively short period of time and still work with the county commission so they don't get clobbered at the time when they're expecting me to give them back $3.5 million. We're doing the numbers, but it probably will be a little bit higher than that this year. It's been as high as $5.5 million. There's a way to do this with short-term debt. You can't stick your head in the sand and act like growth is not coming back and act like we don't need to provide the services. I have been a leader. I've been at the forefront. I did that second office in West Pasco. I took the services to Land O'Lakes, and I took the services to Zephyr Hills. And again, were it not for that storm, I had just re-upped the lease. But it was prudent, and it was economically prudent to use an escape clause in that lease, rather than rebuild. I was going to have to tear everything down to the superstructure, right down to the concrete, and probably put $80,000 in rebuilding it. I knew it needed to be regional, so I opted out. But those facilities are needed. I have a vision, I have a plan. I've been specific about it, haven't hidden anything, and I plan to implement that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're done.
We're done.
We're done.